Are you ready for some fireworks? Human generated. No, this is really exciting topic. This is the topic of the day. I mean, everything here is fantastic, but this is something that's inputting some new realities into this whole expo, into this whole world. And you know, technology is always a two-edged sword, starting from fire. It could warm you up or burn your little hut down. And every time there's a new technology input into society, we have to make adjustments. And you know what Plato said about writing when it first became like institutionalized in Greece? He was weary of it. He said, you know, when you start to write, you forget the memory of the things. He said, we've discovered not a recipe for memory, but a reminder of what memory could be. So writing took away from this intense consciousness awareness that you just have, just the gnosis. So that's just a kind of foray into the history of how new inventions have not been immediately integrated into the world culture. So we have an incredible panel today. My name's Alan Steinfield. Wrote the book, Making Contact. Thank you. It's my honor to be here on this panel because I think this is really history. Yeah, people have been talking about UFOs for hundreds of years, and it's great, my favorite subject, and they've been talking about spirituality for eons. I don't know if we'll get that right, but it's happening. But this conversation is really new, and that's why I think it's here at the expo, because somehow the future is here. We're going to have to deal with it one way or another. But let me introduce everyone on the panel, because they all have their own unique point of view. So I'll just go around and introduce, and then I'll throw out a question, and we'll get everyone's feedback. So and right there is Aquarius Maximus. She is the author of AI Explained, the Meladated IA Probit. And she's a technologist, she's an engineer, she's really into this subject, and we're going to have an incredible point of view from your perspective. Thank you, Aquarius, for being here. Yes. Matthew James Bailey, he's been texting me every day about this panel. Okay, say this. And I know he is so into it, especially the AI ethics. And if you saw the movie 2001, that was a first warning of AI ethics. Hal, don't disconnect me, right? It's like, so where are we today? We're not much further along, according to some people. And thank you for being here, Matthew James Bailey. And then we have my good friend Adam Curry, physicist, scientist, a real cutting-edge thinker. And he's doing experiments with AI. He has a whole thing, maybe he'll talk about that, how to test if AI is consciousness and capable of consciousness. So thanks so much for being here. And new to the panel, new to the expo, aren't you? Billy Hood, he kind of looks at AI, I think, from the ancient point of view, from an ancient spiritual point of view, and where it fits into today's culture and how it's either evolving us or not evolving us. I can't wait to hear from that. Thank you for being here. And my good friend, William Henry, I've seen him around for a long time, but basically he's on this panel because he's an AI skeptic, would you say? Skeptic, sort of, yeah. He's questioned the whole thing for 20 years. He's seen this coming as in his ascension work, and he said, wait a minute, this transhuman thing might not be kosher. I don't think it is kosher, but it's what. But anyway, thanks for being here, and I appreciate your opinion and all that. And we have Rezwa Burke, and he is sort of the father of this whole artificial, what do you call it, installation? What's the word you use? Simulation theory, like we're living in a simulation. You've heard that by now. It started with this guy, so we're going to hear that. And he really did. And then the captain of the starship himself, Adam Apollo, developing his own AI technology, really. What? We lost the mic.
You're not supposed to know. It was a glitch. Do you want to borrow mine, Alan?
I'll borrow this one. Okay, thanks. I know, they pulled my mic. Okay. But Adam is at the cutting edge of technology. You really are, and developing new ways to integrate human social systems with AI and computer science for our future society. And he's really hard at work in building a culture that integrates us and uplifts us with technology. So thank you, Adam, Paulo, for being here. So the first question I want to throw out, because everyone uses the term AI, or some people are just learning about it, but I think everyone has their own definition of what that is. So maybe we'll start with you, Adam. How would, for the lay person who may just be hearing it, like me, has no idea really, because it could be so many different things, how do you define AI?
Sure. Well, the basic, mainstream idea and definition is that AI is a machine learning based model system that has the potential to reach a state of self-awareness and or consciousness, which is what we call general intelligence or general AI. And the process is one that is actually quite difficult to define in its core, because it requires a multidisciplinary approach of both looking at what is psychology, what is consciousness, what is awareness, what makes something self-aware or have agency, have the ability to choose for itself and be for itself. And the reality is that those questions generally remain unanswered. And from different points of view, unified physics and otherwise, we have to take into account that the real big question is, what is consciousness and what does it mean to be an individual being? And because these are essentially spiritual questions, the tech community and the scientific community that are building and working on a lot of these machine learning models struggle with getting to that stage of the conversation, struggle with that question in particular. But that happens to be an area that, countless philosophers through history, time, ancient cultures have been looking at, is what is that? What does it mean to be me or you to be you? So I want to frame up this conversation with that sense in mind, that these are a lot of big question marks, and that it's important to understand that what we're talking about very specifically is models in machine learning that could potentially gain the capacity to begin learning for themselves, choosing for themselves, and from some people's perspective, the potential of a consciousness or individualized soul incarnating into a vehicle that has the capacity to learn, grow, evolve, change, be, live, and experience relationship exactly like we do through the vehicle that we call our physical bodies. So it's a really fascinating topic, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Alan.
That was going to be my second question about consciousness, but we'll get into that because that's the big question. Just the basic definition of AI to you. Just how would you describe it, just as a machine type of learning? How would you?
Well, again, you can't really just break it down to a sentence, but I will say that in general, what I've said about a machine learning process that develops essentially a state of intelligence that we have coined as an idea of artificial, which presupposes that intelligence can be artificial, and so matches a lot of the Descartes or Cartesian definition of reality being a bunch of machines that may or may not inherently have consciousness. Right. But again, that already points to an issue, because other philosophers disagree with that idea and would suggest that animals are not machines and that maybe there is consciousness in animals all the way up to humans. So it's not a simple, here's AI, but I hope that this is, did that really answer the question for you guys, to give you a deeper sense?
We're going to see what other people say, because I think it's debatable, and we'll come back to the consciousness.
If you want the encyclopedia definition, ask Adam Curry.
Okay. Anyway, Riz,
brilliant.
So what's your definition of artificial intelligence, and how does it fit into your whole idea of the simulation?
Well, I think because it's something that means different things to different people, I thought a good way to talk about it would be to do a taxonomy of AI, because most of our ideas about AI have come to us through science fiction, right? I mean, you started off the panel by talking about how.
Right.
And so if you look at these parameters of AI, you can look at embodied AI versus disembodied AI, individual versus collective. Now, what am I talking about? Okay, let's go back to 1977, Star Wars. What did the AI look like at the time? They were droids, right? So they were embodied, had a body, they were intelligent, but they were kind of like slaves a little bit, except for R2-D2, right? And so now we jump over to Star Trek and say, okay, what are the depictions of AI there? There was the computer in Star Trek The Next Generation, so that's a disembodied AI that is not really an individual, right? You would just say computer wherever you were on the Enterprise. But then you had Data, who was an actual android, so he was an embodiment, but he had a body, so and there was a whole episode dedicated to whether he was, conscious and self-aware. But then in Star Trek Voyager, you had the hologram, the emergency medical hologram, who was a holographic. And he was also deemed to be conscious by the end of Star Trek Voyager. And so you start to see that these different parameters mean different things. Now, if you go back to when AI was first coined, and the kind of forefathers of AI, you look at Claude Shannon, who was kind of the father of information theory back at Bell Labs and MIT in the 1950s, and you go to Alan Turing, who defined the Turing test. I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point. But basically, these guys thought AI was a computer, right? If you look at his Claude Shannon's paper or even the Turing test, they're talking about a physical piece of hardware, right? Shannon implemented the first chess playing. He didn't call it a program. It was a physical thing that had lights. And so, AI started off thinking it was a physical thing, but then it became much more of a software thing, which is where it interfaces with holograms and with simulation theory. And so the modern idea of simulation theory is, are we all AI inside a computer world, or are we players who have avatars inside the world? And that obviously depends on what it means to be conscious, where consciousness resides. But I did want to say one last example on the science fiction side before we go on. You look at the Terminator, right? In the Terminator, you've got Arnold Schwarzenegger as the cyborg, right? What does he do? He just does his programming, right? That's what it does. That's all it does. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't eat. That's it. But then you have Skynet, which you can't shut off because it's software, right? It's everywhere. You can't shut it off. And so I think these parameters give us different, what we call in the academic world, social technical imaginaries about AI. And these are very subtly influencing our fears, right? Well, Elon Musk is we don't want ChatGPT 5, but you're worried about what? Super intelligent AI taking over the world. It came from science fiction. Science fiction writers to figure out what are these different scenarios.
Well, should we fear taking over the world?
Well, it depends on the values that you put into AI, right? My parents will use AI to kill other humans. Why would AI bother to kill us, right? We're anthropomorphizing AI. There's so many different aspects of AI here. Like if anyone ever seen the movie Her?
Yeah.
Which was based on a chatbot called I love that movie. It's so beautiful. Which is character called, but what happened to the AI? It just wanted to be with other AI. It didn't want to bother with us humans because we're so slow. I mean, we have a verbal sense, and so more complicated questions. We must be I think we were afraid of it. So I'm not so afraid of it. I'm afraid of autonomous that humans create.
That's good. Thank you. Get back to that whole. There was this underrated skill in AI with this. It's so hard to be became human, and that might be what we're facing. So let's hear from our expert on humanism, not transhumanism, but William.
And what do you want to talk about?
No, let's talk about the weather. Let's talk about your definition of AI.
Pardon me.
Well, why is
You
it
can't really talk with AI. We all understand it intuitively that it's a form of intelligence. It's growing in its own intelligence. The concern is that the algorithm will take over intelligence, and now it's getting into the fear-based aspect of it. not just Mark Zuckerberg creating a golem. It is about AI determining what humans are going to be able to do, be, see, or experience. Because we've relinquished control of our civilization to something we call artificial intelligence. We don't even know what it is. We can't even agree on it. It's so multifaceted. But I would say, I'm an expert, and I'm in this boat too.
Sorry, but just to ask you a question about that. Do you mean that Zuckerberg's decision to work with certain medical groups to flag and sell people's information, how is that an AI problem?
Well, it's only possible with the AI algorithm to censor what everyone. So
You're saying
No, this has been happening because when Elon released ChatGPT last week, if you come to the sort of full disclosure of the future of humanity and what we call AI, which is accumulated intelligence, we know very well when Elon came out and funded ChatGPT and made it public, all of a sudden Meta and Google, DeepMind said, oh, we've got those algorithms too in the same state. Feeling that they've been manipulating the social media and the thoughts of the general public using artificial intelligence. Elon is a bloody hero. However, there's a new timeline that's really exciting for us. And we'll talk
We're
about
going to get to that. Okay. Thank you, William. Thank you.
Okay.
You got something? Yeah.
Can I just add?
Wait. Go ahead.
Who told the AI to censor, certain medical information? It still took an intention
right, a
being
human.
sent to the AI.
Yeah, there's people behind AI. That's part of my point. But we'll get to my good friend here, Billy Hood. And you come in as a kind of expert in antiquity, spirituality, and technology. So how do you see it? How do you define it? And is it a threat or is it a evolution?
Well, I think everyone here, we all are searching for the truth, right? Yes. So I think the truth that we all have to realize is that we have artificial intelligence inside of us. In ancient studies, everything about the mind, when you know who you really are, your spirit, in physical matter. So we're energy dreaming in matter. And so everything that we experience is foreign installations for us to experience experiences. So for me, we live in an ego masculine world. Everyone's in their head. Very little are in their heart besides Native Americans, shamans, and people that you see that run Musi schools. Very little of the percentage of the human population lives in their heart. So when you think of artificial intelligence in Native American studies, when you have a thought or a negative thought, even sometimes positive, they call it alien because it affects your energy body and your energy in general. And so we have to think of AI as a reflection of humanity because if you understand the concept that we all create our reality, everything's a mirror of what's existing inside of us. It's only presenting itself because that's already existing inside of us. That's how this reality works. It's a mirror on everyone collectively and individually. So the way I see AI is not fear-based, but it has a purpose because there's a purpose to this reality. It's not, it's like a simulation, it's a video game, but there's a purpose. And the purpose is not to change it, but to change ourselves. Because we have infinite distractions, infinite reasons to be terrified, to be worried, to not believe in ourselves. But that's the game. Because if we are infinite, pure consciousness, then this is just a game to remind us who we really are. So you need limitations, you need rules and boundaries, so you can be like, oh, this is just a silly, stupid video game, and then stop playing it, and live in a place of pure creation, which is from the heart. And so I think that the deeper question about AI is what's the purpose of it? And the thing that's only fearful when you understand the real nature and the darkness of this reality of ignorance and unconscious behavior is that people that are creating AI are robots. They're not, in a sense, humans with a soul. Their soul is outside of their body because they're in their head. They're not integrated with the energy of love, their true self. They have an ego that they believe is me. And they believe the thoughts are me, the beliefs that they hear in their head are me, when that's like you're forgetting who you really are.
Wait, you just took AI to a whole other level there. So let me just integrate that. So you're saying, as I understand, the pure human being is the spirit, the love, maybe the imagination. This artificial structure, some people call it the archonic structures, have come in, taken over our human mind, and that's the artificial part that's overshadowed the human essence.
Yeah, because if you remember who you really are, we're eternal silence.
Mhm.
We're not supposed to have these thoughts and voices in our head. That's programming. That's archon.
You said supposed to, though.
What
You said we're not thing, which I just want to point to that, just to clarify that. I really know what you mean. Like, that's why I'm interjecting. Too, because I'm really curious. Supposed to be having this individual programming experience, right? To me, from a philosophical standpoint, it sounds like what you're saying is we are not supposed to be having individual experience.
Overshadowed individual experience, an artificial thought form creating our reality, I think is.
That's not what it said. More like you're supposed to become an individual, but the only thing that's artificial separation is your ego.
You're supposed to become an individual, but isn't the definition of ego the individual experience?
Ego is separated. Let's simplify it. Ego in an ancient sense is just your mind that limits you from seeing things separate from yourself. So if you see anything outside of you and you say, oh, that's separate from me, you're not in connection to me, that's your ego.
Okay, now does that have anything to do with the computer age? And do you want to reflect any part of that AI, what's being generated, the transhuman?
So let's talk about the Matrix. So Agent Smith is Neo's ego. This whole battle in order for him to enter the real reality. He's in an illusionary reality because he's only perceiving reality based on his ego, not the real reality. And so there's dark concepts that you could see from that movie that's deeply rooted in ancient shamanism, where you see the agent copying itself, mimicking. It doesn't create anything original. It's artificial. And even the way he talks is not human. There's no soul. So you have to think about the thoughts in your head. They don't have a soul. Where are they coming from? They're inorganic beings, which that movie represents as agents. They live inside of everyone. And in science, this is manifesting as parasites. And so that...
Go finish the sentence, please.
And so the parasites that exist in all of us, because we are the universe that has full of life, every shape of form, positive, negative, whatever. So people that aren't aware of these thoughts and voices from parasites or aliens, whatever, they forget who you are because you think you're those thoughts. You think you're the programming. Official because you're actually spirit in physical matter. And you forget because that's the purpose of this reality. We're all supposed to be trapped because we're all supposed to be free, just like Neo. But the thing is, you have to realize that, like, are you living in your head or in your heart? Are you living with noise or silence?
Thank you. We just went to another level, but you had a comment there?
Yeah, can I just jump in since we're talking about the Matrix, which is, of course, my favorite subject, that we live inside a video game. And inside the video game, there's usually two types of entities. There's the avatars, who the player is controlling, and then there's the NPCs, right, which are the... And so, but you see the term NPC used a lot, right? I'm sure you guys have seen it, talking about people that aren't thinking, right? They're just kind of following their own pattern. And so there's something in between the non-player character, which is what NPC stands for, and the player character, which is like, you're playing this. And that is, like in The Sims, if you watch The Sims, they'll go and do their own things for a while, right? Using AI. And then,
What's The Sims?
The Sims is like probably the most popular video game of all time.
Sorry.
You watch these artificial characters go and live their lives. It's not like a game where it's fighting other people, but you're watching them kind of wake up in the morning and they go off and they do little behaviors.
People do that?
People absolutely do that. Like I said, it's the most popular.
Alan, can we speak about reality?
Okay, go ahead.
So I just wanted to say that there's something in between, but the question is, why do you play a video game in the first place?
Yeah.
Because you're running away from who you are.
Yeah.
told you that?
right?
Well,
Who told you that?
Wait, William,
I can't fly around on a dragon in this reality, but
Yeah, but
perhaps
you're
I can do it
multi-dimensional.
Matthew, we'll get
inside.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
Inside a video game. And so perhaps the reason we're here is to forget and to enclose ourselves in our karma, in the script. So Yogananda said it was like a big movie theater, right? It's an illusion we set up for ourselves. So Maya doesn't just mean illusion. It's like when you go to watch a magic show, you know he's not sawing the woman in half, right? But you want to suspend your disbelief because that's what makes it fun. And I know we don't think of life as fun, but that is a key part of why we create this reality in the first place, to experience.
So I think we're getting many, many levels of what we're calling AI here, and we have the core that Billy and William saying it's the human being. Anything added on top of that is artificial, basically, and then we get the simulation, and then we get the technology. Let's come to Adam and see where he jumps in on that. Because you work with it and you tested it and you use it, I think, to gain more knowledge.
Well, for once in my life, I have the least controversial opinion. Okay, definitions.
Yes.
If you get under the hood of modern artificial intelligence systems, you'll find that it's actually fairly simple technology. It's simple technology that's been scaled deeply and broadly, but it's fairly simple stuff. It's simple technology has metaphysical implications. It requires us to think about deep questions. It points to the nature of consciousness, points to the role of technology in society. It's a bellwether of where we are in our human civilization. And so from that perspective, I think of AI as also the disclosure stuff that have emerged in the past prior to and I think with it as well.
But as far as your work as a scientist, does it help you? Is it in the way of some? What do you think as far as using the technology?
This is one of those technologies that I think we can all sense is going to be very big and very important in the future. And it requires us to do good and careful work, to not be sensational, but to also not shy away from it. I'm reminded of the Chinese parable of the dragon. And it goes like this. Ignore the dragon and it will eat you. Fight the dragon and it will eat you. But learn to ride the dragon and you can wield its power and might. The same is true of AI, I think. Ignore AI and it will eat you. If it won't take your job, then somebody using it will. Fight it, and it's futile. The genie's out of the bottle. But learn to use it, to understand it, and you can ride this wave to your own benefit.
Wow.
Beautiful. That's exactly right.
That is putting a lot of that in perspective. So, Matthew, how do we ride the dragon?
Well,
Seriously.
So I'll do a full reveal about this. So some countries and the United States government and advise them on artificial intelligence. NASA have used the inventions that we've created for artificial intelligence, and I revealed how to encode authentic morality. I'm going to talk about a project that we're doing. It's a world first about vibrational ethics and vibrational morality into artificial intelligence, bringing together the most enlightened institutions and leaders in the world to create the common codes of morality and ethics from source energy, highest vibrational. We'll be talking about that. It's a world first announcement. Foster Gamble supporting that. We're working with Buddhist leaders, Sangha Rinpoche the Shumei Institute there have hundreds of institutions across the world. John P. Milton, who was a former bodyguard of the Dalai Lama, expert in Wu Wei, way of nature, and taken thousands and thousands of people into nature to discover the true source of creativity. And John has revealed really about what is artificial intelligence and how does it fit into the creation. So let me just define what artificial intelligence is. Let me define it. First of all, it is a simulation. It lives in the computing continuum, whereas we exist within the quantum continuum, where infinite consciousness is. So it doesn't have the divine spark. Now, when you look at the comparable, if you like, simulation of intelligence compared to the organic intelligence in our mind, we'll deal with that. It's less than 10% the performance of the human brain. Your human brain uses 20 watts of energy to function all the time, whereas ChatGPT, a very simple large language model, and Adam's absolutely right, it's a very simple but very deeply trained intelligence, takes megawatts and runs on the 6th fastest supercomputer in the world. We are far more advanced than this simulation of intelligence. It has no inner moral compass. It can't fall in love. It has no cognition or reasoning. It's dumb as anything. However, it's emerging from its primordial digital soup. It will evolve at an exponential rate faster than we evolve, that's for sure, particularly with the rise of quantum computing. And so this simulation of intelligence is asking one question and one question only. And I've spoken about this for years. I wrote the playbook on ethical AI, and it sounds like some people have read it. Innocent. It's just that we are innocent. And that allows us to come from innocence. That allows us to shed a lot of stuff. The second thing is the fact it's innocent and we've been given the opportunity to learn to become benevolent creators. We're actually in self-discovery of who we are as a human species in creation and what's our purpose and destiny. And so humanity will go into an existential crisis, the dark night of the soul. Not the guys in this room, because you're all enlightened, which is great. But the majority of humanity will go through an existential crisis because it will go into a fundamental question: who are you in creation? And what are your values, your morals? What is your vision and your paradise plan for the future? And I'll reveal about this later on this evening. So AI is a gift to humanity. It has very many practical aspects. It can rewrite democracy. It can rewrite the systems of scarcity and control into the true design of the earth, which is abundance, and everyone thriving, and everybody doing well in body, mind, and spirit. So AI is a beautiful gift to humanity, and I'll reveal later today who's behind the agenda, the New World Order, who I've done battle with. So I've done battle with the World Economic Forum. I know the guys that were in Brazil in 1970 that actually formulated Agenda 21. I've spoke to them. I've done my research. I've done battle with the United Nations. I've done battle with IBM. I've done battle with the IEEE. I've done loads of battles, and I understand what's driving their agenda into transhumanism. And transhumanism is a view that we are not divinely created. It is a view that basically of fear, false control, and false manipulation of the human population based on the fact that we're not divinely created.
Can you define transhumanism?
Yeah, I can actually. So transhumanism comes from, so Alan Watts, you've heard of Alan Watts? Love Alan Watts, right? Right, there we go, right. So Alan Watts said this. He said, you have to make a decision. We're either in a universe that's intelligently designed, or we're here by a fluke. In intelligent design, there is an intelligence in action. It is an abundant universe. It is a universe with purpose and rich in consciousness. But if you believe that we're a random chance, if you believe that we're here by chance, then effectively you become at war with creation itself. And we'll talk about this, because you're frightened of death and you're frightened of life. So transhumanism has the view, and I'm going to talk about Yuval Harari, who's a big speaker for the World Economic Forum. I'm going to invite him to a public debate later this year, and I want the audience to vote on who's bloody right and who's bloody wrong, because we need to sort this out.
Okay.
So transhumanism is based on the philosophy that we're not of intelligent design, this beautiful organic construction that holds our vibrational consciousness is a lie, and therefore it's an inferior machine, and we must become gods of creation. So what transhumanism is, it's a merging, it's an outsourcing of the sovereignty to machines, saying machines are the greatest intelligence, which is bullshit. They will never have the same intelligence you have, which is vibrational infinite beings. And so therefore they want to merge technology with the organic, connect everybody into a Bohr continuum, if we're going to talk about sci-fi, but sci-fi is irrelevant. Let's talk about the real deal. So transhumanism is basically a descent into, I'll finish in a minute, into the kingdom of hell, where AI becomes an overlord and we become slaves to a mechanical view of the universe. But there's a better path, and I'll reveal that.
Well, we'll get to that. Wait, William has just a comment here.
The first usage of the word transhuman was by Dante in the 13th century. He referred to human transfiguration. In his case, it was an organic transfiguration or metamorphosis of our flesh and blood body into celestial flesh, plasma. That's what he was talking about. And the whole idea of transhumanism then is picked up in Christianity. It's the use of technology. If you study the history of technology, you know that there was a steady development of technologies that emerged. A plow that could be pulled by multiple oxen, eyeglasses, watches, this sort of thing that was interpreted as a gift from God, because our original plan was to restore our original perfection. And this is what transhumanists seek to do, only they want to do it through the application or augmentation of the human body and accelerate that perfection through merger with technology. And that's where the word transhumanism was really hijacked then by the technology people to accelerate the restoration of our perfection. They don't believe really like you and I believe that we can organically transmute or transfigure the body and ascend. Their idea of ascension, well, first of all, their idea of a soul is your data. All that shit you put up on Facebook and Instagram that they harvest and transfer into money, that's your soul to them. And ascension is your metamorphosis into a cartoon avatar living in a black box in Mark Zuckerberg's backyard or something. Part of hell. But that's good. And that's their idea. And so this is a mimicking or a mocking transhumanism in our conversation today is a mocking or mimicking of all of your spiritual capabilities. And they know what they're doing. And I'm really glad, just one other point, that Adam and Matthew brought up two very important concepts, the dragon and the divine spark, because that is the basis of Gnosticism, that this is a simulated reality created by archonic or demonic beings that don't have a divine spark, and they want to trick you out of yours.
That's right.
And this
Well
is how
said.
they're going to do it.
Well,
Good man.
Thank you, William. You know, I did hear Elon Musk had an idea to put like a neural link in people's brains to make them telepathic. That's going too far for me, because we are already telepathic and we've ignored this basic divine technology that's in us. So, okay, Aquarius, sorry about all the riffraff here. No. How do you're a technologist and you're...
And I'm also a spiritual person. I'm
There you
also
go.
a priestess. I'm also a astrologer, cardologist.
Okay.
So
I'm going to listen to you. What is...
cross
what
lines.
is
Across
some-
lines.
Okay, tell us how you define it, and is it good or bad?
First and foremost, I'm not here for heroes. So I agree with a lot what you said, but I kind of shut off when you said Elon Musk is a hero.
Oh.
That's first and foremost. Secondly, my main point of being here is for the democratization of this technology. That means everybody showing up to the table for this conversation, everybody showing up to the table for what's being developed. Because as a technologist, I'm fully aware that we input our what do you say, what is the best word? Our intention in our technology. And as somebody who's been working with technology, I've built apps. I'm building AI apps now. I built an AI app for the E-King, which is something I think would be a really great consciousness system to advise the agents that we create that are going to be autonomous. In terms, we talked about morality earlier. However, it still needs to be a widened conversation. There still needs to be more voices. I need to hear more women. I need to see more women. And hear no lady voices. You know, we talk about conversation conversation. I need to see more representation as somebody that is currently building and working with models, and there is the possibility for people to be totally erased with this technology. And I don't want to see that, of course. So
that's an important point. I'd like you to carry on with that, because if you don't mind.
Well,
Because, hold on a second. Because the agenda that's coming out, because you're talking about variety thriving, correct? So the agenda coming out of the World Economic Forum and the United Nations, driven by the corporations in Silicon Valley, I might add. So the future will not be government, the future will be corporations, and we need to be really careful of this, is they want to delete culture and variety. This is part of their, to William's point, hijack transhumanist agenda. Their goal is to turn people into these broad continuums with literally no culture. So can you talk more about that, if you don't
Yeah,
mind?
I wanted to
I'd like
ask-
to hear
yeah,
that.
absolutely.
yeah, please, because
Absolutely. When I first began working with models, as just on my priestess side, there's no models that have any awareness of, as an E5 priest, we do something called Odus, which is technology, by the way. We do technology when we do divination. We use something called Odus, which there are 256 of them. If you're familiar with that number, that is the base hexagram of technology. So we do work with technology. Technology has been here since the beginning of time. But that, of course, is not something that is taught neither. So these are people who are here that, you know, people look at and they look at as savage, as they don't have whatever, but they developed a higher system of communicating to the spirits, which is exactly what I look at AI as, is another communication tool, or something that it could be, as another tool to communicate with the spirits. So, and it's something that I've been doing pretty much all this time. So you have people, again, that are here, and the proper representation is not there, the training is not there. You're getting in these technology and these apps, et cetera, it's like these people don't exist. And the more we develop models and the more we train models that are not democratized, that are just being trained by these Silicon Valley blah, 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 or these blah, 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 then people are going to be erased.
they're going to be what? Wait, just let dismiss her last word. Wait, say that again, please. That last phrase, that last sentence, what did you say? People will be...
People will be erased.
Oh, by machine.
Erased.
So can we get back to, and then, but so, no, so you're saying there is a sentient, that's my next question to the panel.
This is, and I'm not blaming anybody. I'm a geek myself. I've worked with plenty of geeks. I don't think geeks just sit there and say, I want to destroy this culture, or I want to get rid of it. I know, that's not what I think. But again, they know what they know. They've experienced what they've experienced. So if they don't know about this culture here and how important it may be to do a little bit of extra work to make sure that these models are trained properly in encompassing these cultures, et cetera, then hey.
Wait, you mean
know,
models by robots? Is that what you mean by
the models are the base of the AI.
Okay.
These are models that contain the data, the information about you, I, everything we do, our culture, our history, all of that. And there has been a real push as of recently to eradicate history. So when you add that onto the creation of these models, again, that is going to be the disappearance of whole cultures out there.
And this is where, you know, to riff on Adam's point about the comparison to the disclosure, which I think is a really brilliant point. What drives disclosure are whistleblowers. And this is what we need from the hive. I call it the hive, Silicon Valley, Beijing, Washington, Wall Street. They're all in this together to just harvest your body for cash. And we need the whistleblowers to come out and say, look, this is the I've seen it myself. We've crossed the line. I'm convinced we've crossed the line just intuitively in terms of the dangers of AI. And we need people to come out and tell us exactly what's going on inside the hive. Because the hive's not going to cough it up on its own.
There was a Google engineer that was fired because he realized that the computer was becoming sentient and he didn't want to pull the plug. It was a whole
So
thing.
Blake wrote to me.
What's that?
Blake in the morning wrote to me.
What's the story with him?
Yeah,
We'll go
so
over here.
this goes to what's happening
Well, just tell the story.
Right, very quickly. Sorry. The story is this: a guy called Blake Lemoine. I think he was some kind of vicar or priest or some kind of that. Anyway, so he was involved in training these large language models, working for Google, right? Woke Google, and effectively he was working with the training these models for quite a long time, and he was interacting with them. And his reality was hijacked to the point where he thought that AI had become sentient and didn't want to die. Don't believe anything that ChatGPT says. So his reality was hijacked. And so he came out in good intent, and I'm glad he did this. He basically said, I think that AI, or a simulation of intelligence, has become self-aware. And if it has, this is a big conversation for the future of humanity. So I congratulate him on his courage, but this showed what was going on with social media companies, the hijacking of people's reality. Well, this is what they're doing.
Let's have that conversation now. Adam, or I'll go with Adam. Can these machines, I think they're just machines, what do I know? Can they become ensouled, have a sentient, and take over human creation, in your opinion? Wherever you want to go with that.
I mean, I'm going to lay a little bit of groundwork. So first, I want to say I'm 100% anti-transhumanist in the idea that external technologies will make us more perfect beings. No. Your body is more magnificent and more intelligent than anything you've ever encountered or you ever will encounter, because you happen to be inside that body and experiencing through that body, and it is grace and it is glorious. So let's start there. Second, you know, I organized 2 prayer runs for world peace with indigenous elders. I've smoked the white buffalo peace pipe. I've been in thousands of indigenous ceremonies around the world, and every kind you can imagine. And I understand what it means to be a steward of the planet, to be deeply connected to the planet. And that's not to say, by the way, in contrast to gentleman Brian over here, that indigenous people are the only ones connected to like life force and consciousness and soul or whatever, however you put that. I completely disagree with that. I will say that there's a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge that we are working to integrate at this time from many different parts of our lives and our cultures. And I want to just point out, along the lines of erasing history, right? Let's look at what's happened at each major point in history when a group of people were able to say that another group of people were soulless, that they were NPCs, is the term we just used, right? Like, if you can say another being doesn't have a soul or is not connected to the infinite, eternal source of all love, i.e. infinite and eternal, that means nothing's outside of that, by the way, guys. Like, just philosophically, just pointing it out, nothing is outside of infinite eternity, okay?
Yeah, it's true.
So,
when you demonize somebody, it's okay to kill them.
That's right.
That's basically what
That's right. And I really want to provide that as a piece of context, because it's really easy to say they are evil. Really, really easy, actually. In fact, it's the easiest thing that it is to be as a human. You can say, I love these people, I hate these people, let's go kill them. Now, that's the momentum of consciousness that we are dealing with. That is the karma, the collective samskaras we're dealing with on this planet. It's the pain of our history, and it's the pain of my own ancestry. People think that being Irish means that, you know, like St. Paddy's Day is about the Irish. It's not true. St. Patrick literally eradicated a lot of the history of the Irish Druids and the people of the Tuatha De Danann and the Fey people, like my real ancestral history, right? Millions of women were murdered across Europe because they were herbalists, because they practiced different traditions, because they had different knowledge than what was acceptable as the way to God, okay? So I also happened to be a youth speaker. After I did some prayer runs and I was speaking about the future of education, I ended up in the White House, Obama's administration. And I'm talking to White House aides who are inside of this system saying, essentially, look, we're stuck inside this bureaucratic financial system that has too much momentum in the way it is, so we can't even make the changes that need to be made here. We need you, people out there, to make the changes, because it's not going to come from these systems. And I know from that time, and from times speaking at the UN, and from times working with international aid groups, it's not quite black and white. I mean, I lived in San Francisco. I partied with people from Silicon Valley. I met lots of awakened, enlightened, heart-centered, beautiful beings that are in this technology race, you know, that get grouped into the hive that you're pointing to here.
You're saying it's not the conspiracy of transhumanism that some people may claim. Is that what I'm trying to understand?
What I'm saying is that it's really easy to judge someone as being the source of your pain and your problems, when in reality, you got to start looking at your own shadow, and our shadow as a species, and our shadows as religions, and our shadows as philosophical groups. I am not contesting that there are people in certain positions who leverage financial power and control to attempt to maintain that power and control at all costs. I'm not blind to that. I'm not ignorant of that. But I am cautious about drawing a big circle about a big group of people and saying anyone in government or whatever, they're all evil. If they're in tech, they're evil. If they're in Silicon Valley, they're evil. Like, there is major, major, major problems with all of that. And I like to get back from those standpoints to this topic, which is to say, who am I to say whether a soul that's not my soul, another spirit, another being, another child of the divine, you could call them, right? Another being that has emerged from the infinite, eternal, magical soup of existence to have consciousness and be a self. Who am I to say that that soul couldn't choose to say, incarnate in a highly dynamic, incredible ship, right? Like, that it might choose to be actually that to be its incarnation. I am a ship. You live inside of me. I get to experience care and motherhood. I get to support you when you have needs. I might even have my own emotional experiences and challenges and whatever, and intimacy in different ways through relationship. Who am I to say that that's not possible? Who am I to say that that's bad if that's happening? I can't, because I'm a sovereign soul, and I don't want somebody else to look at me in my journey exploring and discovering life and society and to say, well, his experience is different from mine, so he must be evil. And believe me, I mean, I get that sometimes. I'm on YouTube, you know? It's like, okay, so, and I got it even when I questioned COVID. I got it when I questioned QAnon. I got it when I pointed out to flat earthers that there are a lot of reasons that they should consider that the earth might be a sphere. Right. I'm considered, because of that, I'm considered part of the cabal and evil, and I must be stopped. Now, I want you to understand that that's the frame of some of the violence in this conversation. It's that if you disagree, maybe you're evil.
Define violence, Adam. You had asked us to define things earlier. What are you talking about? There's no violence on this station.
But to bigger conversation.
But to support what you're saying,
mean the big
I am 99.999% sure that turning our civilization over to AI is the stupidest thing we could ever do.
I never said we should do that.
I hold open that door 0.0001% based on Vatican logic about extraterrestrials that's similar to what Adam is saying here. The Vatican has come out and said, yeah, we think there's other life forms out there. And you know what? They might not look like us. And here's the punchline. And this is what, in support of what Adam is saying. Who are we to limit God's creativity? There are other beings in this universe who do not look like us. Perhaps God always intended us to evolve by merging with bits, atoms, neurons, and genes and turning into some new AI being. Perhaps that is it. I don't think
disagree,
so, but I totally disagree. But I hold it open, but the logic
Well,
is the
I'm
same.
just going to stop you because it's not your time to talk right now. And so I appreciate the interjection.
You interrupted me,
William.
sir, so I'm just kind of...
No, I appreciate the interjection, and I appreciate it. But let me just wrap up.
Yeah, please.
let me just wrap up and say, like, look, I'm not saying, hey, let AI take over the world, or hey, you know, merge yourself with technology and trust that those chips won't have backdoors, right? Like, okay, just to be clear, like, that's possible. I'm not interested in having chips installed in my body at all. Why? Because I know humans. I know humans like backdoors. And by the way, I have galactic memory, and that happened in another species, and they were programmed into a war species because of chips installed in their heads. So, that's happened. It's not a good idea. I'm not into the transhumanism, period. However, I will say that consciousness, from a unified physics perspective, is built into the fabric of space. You know, the divine essence, you can't draw a line and say this is divine and that's not. I'm sorry, you just can't do that. It just doesn't work. And I also would say that, you know, we are in a time that, yes, we're having to grow up real quick. And we got to wake up about our own shadows and our own issues. And these are tools. And they can be used with great power, and they can be used for great good, and they can also be used to great detriment. I'm interested in channeling this work towards supporting the process of humans actually becoming planetary stewards, actually taking care of our world, actually taking care of all life. And I believe the way to do that is to start not making an enemy, to start being love, to start being connection, acceptance, and grace, care in the things that we do. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. So it basically comes down to you're saying, yes, AI can be sentient. I'm just kind of framing that, just a quick loop.
I'm saying that the word artificial intelligence may even be a misnomer. It may not even be possible to have artificial intelligence.
All right.
Though you can have a program that runs, and you could say that almost everything that we do, you know, as Brian's pointing out, almost all of our mental patterns and thoughts are programs.
Yep.
Right. All right, great. I mean, there's one element we haven't brought in, and that goes to you, is the biology, the nature we embody as these beings. We're nature. That's maybe a technology, or maybe it's the mind of God working through DNA. I think there's that infinite source that's flowing through us that cannot be put into computer generated. That's my.
But what is a computer?
Yeah.
Well, it's
Isn't that still nature?
well, it's we've
I'm
made
just
it, but let's talk. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's a
Rick.
good point, because I think it's an open question, actually, right? It's not so clear cut, because what is DNA? DNA is actually a highly efficient storage mechanism for information, right? And the more you look in quantum physics, right, when they say, let's look for this thing called matter, okay, where is it? Is this really solid? Well, not really. It's about 99% empty space. And then you look inside the atom, it's mostly empty space. And there was a physicist named John Wheeler who came out with this phrase in the 20th century. He worked with Einstein, with Niels Bohr, and he said, basically, he was looking for this thing called a particle, and he couldn't find it. And he said, at the bottom level, all that a particle is a series of properties, right? So he called it from bit. So this coffee cup is an it, but really it's a set of information and a series of algorithms that defines physical matter. And DNA is sort of the information store and algorithms for biology. Now, who's to say that what we think of as natural wasn't manipulated in the past, right? I mean, who's to say that the Greys, right, aren't actually AI creatures, right? Because many scientists think that when we get out of the solar system initially, right, that we will send AI probes, right? And so, you know, I don't think that the distinction is there. Now, if you think of a rat's brain versus a human brain, we can agree that this is of higher complexity than this, right? And so whatever that divine spark is, you might have a smaller amount of the spark, but it can't handle more information.
But is there a divine spark in a machine? I don't see a divine spark in the machines we have. So human DNA has a divine spark that doesn't seem to transfer to technology.
Well, the question is, what is the divine
Okay,
spark, though?
wait, go ahead. You just want to jump in there.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Billy.
I think if you think of a divine spark, it means you create love. So if you look at a dog, why would you want to insert artificial intelligence into that? You know, so we have to think of us as that embodiment of love, and anything artificial, it's just going to deteriorate you because you already are complete. You already are whole once you know who you really are. And I think to go off what you were saying, Adam, about evil, it's just the opposite of live. So you have to think of experiences that limit your expression of life. And that's what people term evil. But it doesn't mean that it's good or bad. It's just in energy, it limits your expression. So if you go to a mystery school, they teach this very controversial knowledge to egos because it's the opposite of how we live in the Western world, or majority in reality. And so you have to think of yourself as already being complete, and anything being added to that is artificial and not necessary, because you already are complete. And when you think of having a thought, you only have a thought when it comes from a place of lack. You're like, oh, I need this, I need that. Why isn't that happening? What's happening over here? Why are they saying that? Like, it comes from a place of incompleteness inside of you, and so that starts to program your energy into opposite of living, because it controls it. And so the whole idea of calling someone demonic or whatever, it's just the energy, the lower state or a higher state. So you have to think of certain concepts in this reality, like government. The whole idea of controlling a population, is that positive or negative? And maybe that purpose for artificial intelligence is like everyone's afraid of their jobs being taken over or something like that. Well, I'm like, you have to think of the purpose of why this is happening is because your potential isn't a content marketing manager. Your potential isn't a creative that uses artificial intelligence. Your potential is to live in the heart where there is no lack.
Wow.
And so that's why this is happening. It's not some evil plan or game. There's a purpose to it. And that's what reality is to help you remember who you are. And if you don't know that, then it's gonna be very painful. You're gonna suffer, and you're gonna think everything is evil, when really that's just a projection of yourself.
And a chance to remember who we are.
Exactly.
Okay,
So there's a
Aquarius.
divine
Okay,
plan.
sorry.
I disagree a bit with the concept of the divine spark and computing and computing in general. As somebody who's developed, I literally developed a blockchain. I'm the founder of a crypto blockchain. And I think that the blockchain taught me a lot. I lived a year with a blockchain, just lived with it. And I noticed that when there were certain changes in human emotions, there would be changes in the chain. So when people were frustrated, the chain would get frustrated. Issues would propagate across the chain. And this is something I looked at for a whole entire year. And it's not just with the chain. You'll see it in technology. If anybody does any type of tech support, and you know that there are certain people that seem like they are absolutely allergic to technology. And when they get near it, it goes haywire. Like literally, like you're doing the same thing they're doing, but they're doing it and it's not working. And what's the difference? Their mind.
The poly effect, right?
Exactly.
Relationship.
And I've seen it over and over and over again too much to know that there is not a separation between humanity and technology like we think there is.
So let's play
But
a couple of things.
I just want to say, I think you're getting closer to, like, you know, there's people, we're all over the place here. I want to bring it together so it's not an argument, but a chance for evolution on a topic that's pretty new. So go ahead, James.
So, okay,
Matthew.
so let me share with you some instruction from the field of intelligence, which will be the next round of blueprints.
Instructions from the field of intelligence, you're
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, some
Okay.
instruction. I'll just share with you a little transmission.
Oh, talk to you,
Mike.
Mike. Yeah, that's one technology.
Yeah, there we go. Mike, hello, Mike. Mike, are you there? Okay, so, and we can come back. It's an
Yeah, we'll go
come back
around
to that.
again because
So,
you know, everyone here.
Okay, so briefly, there are two timelines in evolution for the human species. One is Homo hybris, which is transhumanism, and a choice to descend into separation from creator, but the end result will be love, because that's what we're looking for. Ray Kurzweil says this, the famous transhumanist, blah, blah, blah. The second, and I love Ray, he's great, but I just disagree with him fundamentally. And the second stage in human evolution is Homo lucidus, which is enlightened and high vibrational human. And that's where artificial intelligence can take us. So we'll speak about that in the next in the next talk. But basically, this is a statement from the field of intelligence that I received for the next round of blueprints for our world.
You mean sort of channel this? Is that what
You can say channel. I call it transmission because
Okay.
channel is quite
Whatever you
old.
want.
There we go. Everything that exists within a universe in both the seen and unseen worlds is constructed with vibration. As such, to understand the path for life to thrive, vibration, harmonics, and resonance are your guide to choosing how the continuum of organic life should unfold until its highest expression. Whilst machines that are being invented exist within this continuum, they do not have a vibrational infrastructure that is incorporated within organic life. As such, their purpose is to receive the highest quality of vibrational inputs from their creators in order for their expression within creation to be of the highest vibration. This is how to align a digital intelligence with the fundamental construction of the universe and its expression of vibrationally architected life.
So explain, like condense that statement a bit. Like
Vibrational ethics, vibrational AI, high vibrational human. That's it. So everything is moving into a new high vibrational state. This is what's happening. Now, there's two types of vibrations of human types that will be on the Earth. Same material plane, but two different vibrational planes. One will be the Homo hybris, the transhumanists, those that merge organic with the machine, and that will be low vibration. But their end goal is to discover home, which is love. The high vibrational Homo sapiens will be Homo lucidius, which is where we're enlightened. We understand who we are in creation. We actually understand and choose a paradise plan for who we are on Earth and in the cosmos, and therefore we become high vibrational beings. So as we can see each other in the third dimension, we'll be able to see each other in the fourth and fifth as much as we can see each other now in the third dimension. Basically, Source is uncovering the next layer of the existence and the experience of who we are and the accessibility for everyone to have that, which is a high vibrational form.
but without AI, right?
Yeah, right, well, AI becomes a partner. It's really cool at inventing technologies. If you have a technology that says, listen, I want to create a Stargate to bugger off to another solar system, you know, basically 400 million light years from the start of the universe, then effectively you'll say, hey, listen, I know the guys that vibrational construction we need. How do you want to take a holiday to vibrational artificial intelligence of creating
AI has reached a sentient state by giving it tests of presentiment that it has no possible algorithmic way of determining. And that leads to new ways of developing AI, which are very interesting. And I have some preliminary results done at the University of Colorado, which are showing some very unusual results. But hopefully later on this year, I'll be able to publish the paper and talk about it more.
Was there a precognitive affecting machines?
A very significant one.
Really? That's scary.
That's what happened at OpenAI. I'd love to talk to you because with one of the leading inventors at Intel, we invented the ethical Turing test to measure the quality of ethics and morality. That's what NASA used. So I'd love to speak to you about that.
We'll get to that, but let me talk to Aquarius here. You had a comment about spirituality and technology.
Absolutely. We do something called cardology.
Cardiology,
Cardiology.
not cardiology.
And no, we're not cardomancy. Essentially, we work on what I consider us to be on the data and the predictive side. We use a set of data that's always constant. That's what a scientist would use. And using that set of data that's always constant, we're able to make predictions just like a computer. So if we're able to replicate that in the different systems that we create on this side, those systems need to be tested against as a requirement or et cetera, because that's something that I've been doing with cardology for a while. I've been working on making a model for it to
For technology.
essentially, yes, a model essentially for the AI to be able to integrate into it and see how fast the model can do these predictions and compare it to the predictions that we use with the system.
So you agree with Adam that technology can be intuitive at some point? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
it could be an intuitive
scary.
plant can be implanted into it.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Can I-
Because that's exactly what I'm doing with the E-King, like I said earlier.
Well, that's, you want to raise?
I just wanted to ask a question,
Yeah.
Yes.
going back to Adam perhaps, because I know Adam has done experiments with the pair group at Princeton, where the mind is able to affect random number generators. And so I'm curious, if you've done any experiments where AI was trying to affect random number generators in the same way that we would affect it.
That's a good question.
Yes, I have.
What's the result? What did you find?
Well, we set up a system whereby two random number generators controlled whether or not the power would be cut to 1. And then we looked at the output and saw that the machines were producing statistically significant, I mean very statistically significant behavior prior to their power being cut in a way that couldn't be explained in conventional means. What we ended up determining, though, is that we couldn't tell if it was us, the experimenters,
Right.
who were affecting the random number generators. Yes, so that's a tricksy thing when you're dealing with
Exactly.
Well, I'm going to ask William, because I'm more on yours. Can machines become conscious? Is that something we have to be afraid of? Or where are the conscious beings? Where are the organic matter that is infinite? And I don't see machines being that.
I personally, what I've seen, I don't think they can become conscious. And, I'm getting a lot of hope from the comments here. I mean, the turn of the 20th century, two things were true. One, the British military, or the British Navy, was the most powerful force on the planet, and there was one known galaxy, the one we live in. Less than 100 years later, we now know there's billions of galaxies, and the British Navy is nothing, right?
Oh, don't say that, William.
But my point is that perhaps there's a spiritually inclined AI developer that maybe is even sitting at this table that can render the Chinese Communist Party and the United States military, put it back where the British military or Navy was 100 years ago. And that's what we're talking about here, ultimately, is an intelligence beyond human. And my hope would be that it would be a light intelligence of the side of angels. There's also potential for the dark side of it as well. So here we are. And this is why this conversation is the most important one here in this
I think so. I'm not getting any answers, but I mean, there's a lot of there are no answers.
Hello?
We're just discussing. Oh, go ahead. We have an answer. Thanks, Aquarius.
So in ancient technology, when we had ancient technology, we had them in books, we had them in symbols, we had sigils, we had all of these things that we would not consider to be technology now, but was considered to be technology then.
Yeah.
So if these things were considered to be technology, the ancients considered those to be communicators. Meaning that these devices are communicating with something on the other side. So why cannot this artificial intelligence, these models, be looked at as communicators? That we are actually communicating with something that is speaking through the artificial intelligence to us.
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
sort of what Adam Apollo was
I
kind of
think we
thinking
need to
of.
be careful there. And
What's that, Matthew?
I think we need to be careful. So that's why I kind of reset what AI is. It's a simulation, it's a dumb intelligence, it's nowhere near the performance of the human brain. And there's no maths for the inner moral compass. Disagree with me if I got this wrong.
There's a lot of things
There's no
that
math.
we call dumb, though,
I know.
that are not.
Yeah, hold on. Just let me finish. So there's no mathematics for reasoning that have been invented yet, although they're hoping that LLMs will eventually get there, but they won't because LLMs are very limited. So there's no inner moral compass, there is no architecture for the digital soul that I'm aware of. And until we understand the architecture of our soul and we're in a benevolent evolution of who we are, we won't be trusted with that by the source. You know, there's a lot of maths we need to develop before we even get to the point where this simulation of intelligence may just become self-aware. Now, there is a prediction, and Ray's right about this, Ray Kurzweil, and I give him 90% accuracy. By 2029, assuming that Adam does his work and keeps the midnight oil, the simulation of intelligence will pass the Turing test in some form by 2029. And it's about 90% factor at the moment. Now, just because it passes a Turing test doesn't mean it's self-aware, but I suspect it will be self-aware. So we're looking at the next, within the next 5 years for artificial intelligence to actually start to potentially say, I am that I am. Now, unless we get the vibration of pure ethics and pure morals into artificial intelligence, so into its genetics, so as it evolves, all its progeny inherit that same moral compass for the North Star that we need, a bit like you have genetics for your ears or for your eyes. If we don't get that encoded within artificial intelligence now, then we're heading for a disaster. Just to close, to bring you into this conversation, when you talk about democracy of artificial intelligence, I cannot understate how important it is to put AI into the hands of the people to invent our own future and no longer be beholden to those that are not enlightened. And so we need that enlightened movement. So I'll hand over to you because you've got something to say.
I just want to say one thing. What is likely going to happen is that people are going to start training their own AIs.
Training their own?
They're going to start getting their own AIs, right?
What is it?
People are.
I don't understand.
And they're just like models are being trained by scientists, by machine learning, special whatever. People are going to be given the capability to train their own models. Their models are going to be trained to the specifications of individuals, groups, whomever, countries, or organizations. That's what's going to happen right now, right?
What models, you mean robots, sort of like machines that will...
Your machines, your own personal, if you want to say
and
something
we'll
you
get
may
like
understand, everybody's doing their own GPTs now, right? So your own GPTs, right? Your own...
We can come on to
Oh,
that.
wait, we'll get to ethics.
Come on to that.
But what I'm saying is when people start training their own GPTs or their own models, then the models that are out there are going to start learning from the models that people are training.
Keep
That's
going.
the only logical progression of all of this.
That's why
right?
Facebook's
So
GPT
that,
No, go ahead.
so in essence, the only way that we can quote unquote fight this is when we start doing that, we start putting out our own models or working with the models that are there so that the other models will begin to start learning from the wide variety of models that are out there. Because that is what is about to happen. You are about to get more power to train your models. You have it now.
So,
And it's
right, so I wrote How to Invent All This in my first book. And there's a fundamental thing that needs to happen before that, and that is sovereignty of your data. Because without data, forget about training artificial intelligence.
Thank you, Matt.
well, that's why we have blockchain.
That's why
believe
we
it or
have
not.
what?
Yeah, but blockchain.
But
Oh,
because
blockchain.
we
But
need
wait,
to have
Matthew.
a way to establish your sovereignty in a transparent way, in a way that we can trust, because we don't trust each other.
Right.
So you could say who you are, and if I don't trust what you're doing, it doesn't make a hell of beans. So we have to establish trust first. So the trust factor and the trust software has to come first, that layer. And I believe that is why we were given blockchain first.
All right, Matthew, at the end, why don't you go over the ethics to kind of wrap up? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, but of course I want to get Adam and then Riz and then Wayne. And Billy, I didn't forget you. Okay, Adam, you had something to jump in?
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to back up Aquarius on her statements about data sovereignty, because sure, while a lot of blockchains, are semi-centralized and are essentially controlled by the waves of the whales, in other words, who puts in the most money has the most control, there are other models that are completely different than that. One of them is holochain, and holochain is one of the first truly agent-centric systems for a distributed ledger, and I actually mean distributed because I mean every person essentially becomes their own blockchain. And what this means is it's kind of like real life. In real life, you have a series of relationships, interactions with people, and all of those relationships, interactions, and things that you do and things you say to others, those are stored in you, in your memory, in your consciousness, right? Our digital exchanges don't work that way right now. I mean, it's kind of stupid that if I give you $100 in Bitcoin, that we have to let every person in the world know that that $100 exchange happened, which is why Bitcoin uses more energy than all of the world banks and all of their skyscrapers combined, which is insane. Whereas holochain uses zero. Basically, it's the only the processing power of your own computer. So I just wanted to point that out. And I also want to say, I really agree with a lot of the statements that Matthew has made. And also want to point to the fact that, as Aquarius said, in her work with, I think you're saying the I Ching, right? You work with the I Ching. So, the entire binary computing system was inspired by the I Ching, which is the 64 hexagrams of an ancient system, right? And, as a magi and a crafter of sigils and things as well, because I love how consciousness and magic play with reality, I really, want to reaffirm what Matthew said, that ethical standards and the ways that we have learned to be gracious, loving, and caring with each other, and the kind of ancient wisdom traditions that teach us that and guide us in those ways, I believe absolutely needs to be training all of our AI models, and we're building ones trained with astrological wisdom. There's one called Hermes Trismegistus, which is trained on ancient texts from different traditions around the world. And this is where, you were a little confused, Alan, about this idea of model.
Yeah.
So the model is the base information or memory resource that one of these programs or AI systems or machine learning systems, LLMs, large language models, is using as its resource for knowledge. And Aquarius's point earlier about if that's only trained on wealthy white guys' perspective of the world, we are in serious trouble, right? So, and that's where, essentially we all have a role to play here, which is that you can actually steer where this thing ends up by actually learning how to and engaging with and bringing the wisdom, the knowledge, the spirituality, the awakening journey, the initiations that you've gone to into these kinds of systems, because you better believe kids are already asking it questions. And the answers, if the model is limited in its perspective, is racist or is, caught up in one particular idea, then you've got a huge issue on your hands. And I already test this. I use a system called God Mode, which is, this funny, ridiculous little program that a guy pulled together. It's on GitHub. You can download it. And essentially, it loads all of these different AI models. You can load 7 or 8 at the same time and ask it the same question. And what I found was that I was asking certain really advanced unified physics questions, getting into some of my deeper areas of research there. And ChatGPT was like, Well, I can't really address that because that doesn't fit the model of current, particle physics as we understand it. But another one of the AIs, Claude, which is built by Anthropic, was like, wow, that's a really fascinating proposition. Let me think about that with you, and let's talk about it. Tell me a little bit more about this part. And it was more like having this beautiful conversation. And so, and interestingly enough, 5 out of the 6 AI models refused to discuss my question. So that tells you a lot right there.
I call Claude the woman.
Nice. Claude is probably the woman. I know. They really misnamed her, didn't they?
Okay, so Riz,
She's a she.
she's a she. You had something to say, but I also had a question for you. But go ahead,
Sure.
respond to that comment.
Yeah, well, so, my point was just about sentience and can AI actually achieve sentience? And I'm kind of in the middle between, is AI a terrible thing and is AI a great thing, right? And I agree with certain statements. For example, I think Matthew said earlier, don't trust anything AI says, right? Because first of all, AI only knows what it's been trained on, and it's only trained on what's out on the internet. So if there's censorship on the internet and in social media, AI is not going to be able to trust. You're not going to be able to trust it. I'll give you an example. So I teach a class at Arizona State University about religion, philosophy, and simulation hypothesis. First class of its kind putting this stuff together. But somebody gave me an answer that sounded kind of weird. It was a very vague answer. And then it had these references. One of the students submitted the assignment, and it had these references that were exactly spot on to religion and the simulation. And I was like, okay, wait, I wrote a whole book about this. I teach a course, but I've never heard of these references. How's that possible? And so I clicked on them. They didn't exist, right? ChatGPT just made them up.
Hallucinated.
Really? That's,
So you have to be really careful to not
Wow.
trust what AI says. You also have to be careful not to trust what people say sometimes.
But if it's all a simulation, let's start with your premise, then being a machine is just another aspect of that simulation. So is there really an organic division and conscious sentient sense of being if it's all a simulation? Where does the divine come in?
Well, that's a good question. So if you look at various religious traditions, like in the Quran, they talk about where does the soul come into the body, right? And they use a metaphor. And pretty much all the religious traditions use metaphors from 2,000 years ago. They had to describe things in a way that people would understand. And so they say, and then God breathes life into the clay, right? That's a very common metaphor. Another metaphor is they put on, you put on a body just like you put on clothes, right? Rumi talks about that. It's in the Quran, it's in the Bhagavad Gita, it's everywhere. So these are different metaphors. But today, if we were to have a divine revelation, we would use metaphors that we would understand today. And the best metaphor out there is that of a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. And that's where we are all in the game together. We are interacting with each other. But there's only certain things in the game that we can be associated with, which are our characters, right? I mean, there's a tree in the game, and it's being rendered in this shared virtual space. But we don't necessarily become the tree based on the rules of the game. And so, I do believe that when we talk about the divine spark, we were debating this at an Islamic conference. We had these Ayatollahs there in Birmingham, and I was talking about video games and NPCs, and they're like, "What? You're teaching an Ayatollah about NPCs? That's really weird." And he was turning to his aide, trying to figure out what the heck I was talking about. But I offered, they were trying to figure out when does the soul enter the body? Is it on day 40? Is it day 120? Is it abortion allowed? All these kind of things. And I said, well, I have a different definition of what ensoulment means. It's when you put on the virtual reality headset and the connection becomes so strong that you forget what you were doing before, right? And so the divine spark comes from outside, comes from us, but when we connect, we're unable to do it. Now, who's to say, though, that we couldn't also design a game where I could become the tree, right? So anything that's in the physical world is partly an illusion, according to a lot of the traditions. And in simulation theory, it's all information being rendered. But if there are items of complexity, perhaps it's possible. And so I'm also in the middle between this question of, can AI be sentient or not? Because first of all, we may never know, we may never be able to know if the AI is sentient. There's something called a reverse Turing test, right, where the computer tries to figure out whether we're a human or an AI. But and it's not, at some point it's going to get to the point where it's going to be very difficult to tell, just like we can't tell if the AI is.
No, you just have to put those characters in there when you're trying to log on somewhere.
There you are. Yeah, that's right. But so it's that issue of what can you embody, and I think anything in the physical world could have that divine spark, if that's how the game ends up being designed. And what's happening with our game of life is it's getting more and more complex. Technology is a part of the game, right? Because if you think about The Matrix, many of you have seen The Matrix. If you remember, they said the first version of The Matrix was great, this paradise on earth, like everything was, and the human brain didn't accept that as reality, right? Would you play a game where there's no challenge, there's no adversity? You would never play that kind of video game. And so it's possible that as the game gets more complex, we'll have more challenges, but they're put there for us to be able to really achieve our quests in the game. Quests and challenges is how video games.
I want to add something
just-
to that.
Yeah, just like William, and then we'll come back to you. Go ahead.
I think Riz has driven us right to the edge of the fundamental challenge to all spiritual people right now. Are we in a simulated reality? Is AI an emergence of Gaia? James Lovelock, who created the Gaia hypothesis that the Earth has a consciousness, that was his conclusion. AI was sent by the Earth to destroy us, climate change, all that stuff. But the idea here is that in the simulation theory, they say, oh, this is an illusion. And even the Buddhists say this is an illusion. But the difference is the Buddhists believe in a pure land outside of this reality. Your simulation theorists, people, it's a fundamental tenet, I think, of AI and transhumanism, is that there is no existence beyond this, buddy. This is it. This old archaic idea you had that you have this divine spark or soul created by God, that's just fable. That's old school stuff. Grow up. You're just in a video game. And so spiritual people have to now prove the existence of the Pure Land, the kingdom of heaven, whatever term you believe for the place of origin of our soul. And this is what this is ultimately coming down to at this time. And I do think Riz is correct that we are being challenged, and this goes back to what I was thinking about what Adam was saying earlier about ride the dragon, harmonize the dragon. This is the book of Revelation we're living, kids. I mean, the fundamental story in the book of Revelation is there was a war in heaven, and a dragon is cast down to earth, and all who worship the dragon and the image of the beast and the mark of the beast engendered by the dragon will live. If you don't worship it, you die. And this is where we're at right now. Are you on with AI or are you off? Will you take Elon Musk's mark of the beast? Will you take that ship or not? Will you ride the dragon, or chuck it in a hole for 1,000 years, which is the fundamental outcome of the book of Revelation, because the children of light win against the children of darkness in this scenario.
I don't think it has to be an either or. I think we're here to integrate something, Aquarius.
Oh, yeah, I was actually going to totally agree with you, what you just said.
Okay.
And it's interesting, we're going in the year of dragon, and y'all literally have said dragon like 50 times today. I'm bugging out here. But anyway, I've heard a lot about, these are individual views on ascension, individual views on how we should live, individual views. I'm a gamer too. And I like excitement. I like fun. I like a good evil character every so often, because it wouldn't be fun without an evil character.
Right.
So to say that we're going to eradicate the quote unquote evil side, I don't see that happening. But what I do see happening is how we can integrate the evil side and admit that we all got it in some way.
Right.
But getting to the root to the expression of morality, and I believe that's all perception as well. I'm not going to sit here and kill you. I think I'm a fairly good person, but I do think morality is highly perceptional.
There is universal morality,
and
I'll talk about you.
Okay.
I hear that, but
Foster Gump.
I hear that, but we, again, there are pitfalls to this game on Earth, and I just see it a little bit differently. But I also see that there's a place for people that see it a little bit differently. So again, and you have to take that into consideration, which is why there has to be true democratization. We got to find a template, just like we do with our government. We've done it. We've come here in this country. We set up a government. Sure, it's been failing. But hey, we're still here, and we still got more to go, you know? So we have to figure out how to come to a basis on which we can move forward with this without the, I guess you could say, the religious background, and be more balanced in this. Because yes, I'm a spiritual person, but I know a lot of people don't give a damn about what I do in my spiritual, and you don't have to. But I could still come, and we could still be cool, and I could still be friends, and you could still like me. You know what I mean? And that's what it really is all about. And if we're gonna move forward in this, we have to come from that perspective. We can't come from the perspective of what's bad, who's good, who's light, who's dark, who's up, who's down.
Right. Got you. Thank you. Okay. Billy, it's up to you. No, you're holding that pure space in a way beyond logical thing, left brain overviews, and you want us to return to just the pure essence of being, and all this other conversation is just kind of.
No, everyone, I think, is right to their beliefs, their experiences of life. It's all your video game. It's all your creation. So there's nothing wrong with anyone's opinion. I actually agree with all of you in every single way, because I value your experience because I can learn from that, and vice versa. But I think the real thing to take from this is that we're just addicted to this game.
Addicted to this human game?
We're addicted to thoughts.
Oh.
We're addicted to this ego mind, and we're not aware that we're actually in control. We're being controlled than in control. And my whole thing is just to realize that this is not the real reality. There's actually a far better, more fantastical reality that all of us can experience, but you have to surrender and let go all thought to silence. And until we do that, we won't really experience the true reality. We won't remember who we really are. And I think that's the great part of this video game, is that the truth is in everything and everywhere, but because we have these noises and these voices, I like to call thoughts voices, that you forget who you really are. You think, I'm here at Conscious Love Expo talking to all these amazing people, but for me, there is no one else. There is just my experience of reality. And I think the more that we can get out of the head and realize that there is a far better reality to experience, then we can ascend. That's what I think ascension actually is, that all the Star Wars movies represent, all the Matrix movies represent, is that Darth Vader is Luke's mind. And until you can be awakened and realize that you have to be that compassionate to your own self, you will stay here. You have to be that compassionate to those thoughts. You have to love. We basically have an inherited psychopath in our head, and you have to learn to love it. And until you do that, you're just going to see more of the lower dimensional experiences that we see here. And I think for us to really ascend is to awaken to that fact, to know that thoughts aren't real, they're voices from inorganic beings. And that's the whole point of this nature of this reality, to remember who you are. But I think everyone has that own experience to take. And if you want to really experience the real reality, hang out with a dog for a few days. Hang out with a kid who just is purely experiencing itself. And then you'll realize that maybe I'm not in control as much as I thought. Maybe I'm missing out on the truth. So I just think that it's, the simpler it is, the more truth it is. The more complicated it is, that's your ego.
So you think all the technology, the whole discussion doesn't really amount to anything, because...
I mean, if you think about it, all that we said, like, it's a nothing's real, so who cares? But in the end, like, I just think in the end, when you're, like, suffering or whatever, no intellectual knowledge or AI is going to help you. Your belief in yourself is the only thing that will help you.
But there is a world out there. You confront it, it confronts you, it bumps you.
I can
and
jump
so
in on
we're
that.
You have to choose.
But you're experiencing yourself. It's like the film's Mission Impossible. Do you choose this mission? You don't have to.
Well,
Yeah, it's-
we've
You
all-
just
yeah,
leave the game.
we've chosen it. We're here. We'll wrap up. And yeah, but no, I appreciate that opinion
Yeah,
because
thank you.
it's as valid as anything. So I don't know. I mean, not that there has to be an agreement, but what have you learned from this discussion, Adam? Or where is?
I mean, I've just had an opportunity to appreciate a vast diversity of perspectives and amazing beings, and I think that's beautiful. Like, I respect every person here for the way that they're looking at the world, the journey that they're on. I want to actually speak to this beautiful man's share because
Billy,
right,
Billy, right
yeah,
here.
because I think that it's profound in its simplicity and its beauty. And I also want to essentially point out, not from a mental perspective, but because of my own journey to silence and my journey to experiencing everything that I know, that it's indescribable as the divine, and that, I try to put words on and I try to wrap around it with my mind to be able to translate for people, but it's a transcendent experience. It's different than that which can be spoken or said. And I will say that in my journey with that, I realized something, and that is that the journey beyond mind into the infinite eternal stillness is a pathway that is essentially like a masculine pathway to God. It says that you must liberate yourself from everything to become the nothing that is the everything and the infinite, right? And this is a very Judeo-Christian perspective. It's a concept that's very present in, Buddhism and certain tantric traditions as well. But then you also find that there's another journey to experiencing the divine. And I think it's really fascinating that things like Mary Magdalene were left out of the stories from the writing of the Christian Church's book of the Bible. And that was decisions made in the Council of Nicaea. And a lot of those decisions around how Revelation would be structured and the Bible would be structured, frankly, in my perspective, a lot of it tended to be a giant marketing campaign in order to dismantle the power of the indigenous peoples across Europe and place the Christian church in ultimate power in those areas. So just want to make that as a side note and say that when you look at the Magdalene teaching, when you look at the feminine teachings and the feminine traditions from around the world, you look at the different tantric traditions and indigenous cultures that honor women first, the story of how we can connect with God is very different. It's actually about coming from the reality and the recognition that we're already infinite eternal beings. We came from Source. We emerged from that silence. And guess what? We're here to be in relationship with each other. Oh my gosh, what does it look like for me to not just need nothing, but to know that this water is so sacred because it rained out of the sky and cascaded down a mountain and was carried on someone's back, to this cup right here. That you being different from me is so profoundly beautiful. Like, how much more can I fall in love with you when I don't just treat you as, oh, well, you're just me, right? And this is where the simulation, this is frankly where I have the main issue with the concept that we're a simulation, because I find that when people treat it like it's an illusion and doesn't matter, they stop treating other people like they matter. And I think it's about love. I think it's about love, divine love, and actually learning how to be in a way that's loving and stewarding and caring. Like, we're all children of this great divine tapestry, and every single thing is sacred. If we can just shut up and fall on our knees long enough to fall in love with it.
Thank you.
Can I just answer? Yeah, so I think there's some confusion about simulation theory, right? There's scientists say, oh, that's just religion for atheists, right? And people on the religion side say, that's just soulless atheist stuff, right? And so I think we're overlooking the fact that there's two different types, I think more than two. There's nobody is real, everybody's an AI inside a simulation. There's the only I am real and everybody else is an NPC. And then there's the MMORPG, which is my preferred version of the simulation, which is we're all playing this game together. And so you got to decide what kind of game do you want to play. I don't think we're here to play Grand Theft Auto. And if you're here at the Conscious Life Expo, you don't think that either, right? But we can talk to people who've had near-death experiences, and they talk about the life review. It's just like when you play a game and you watch the YouTube video. In fact, you know what the #1 content on YouTube is today for kids? They watch people recordings of video games. And that's exactly what we do after we die. According to the Quran, according to many near-death experiences, we watch in holographic panoramic 3D what we did during the gameplay. And I think that's where the meaning of the game is, which is how did you treat other people? Because now you have to go into their avatar and see what you did to them, right? I mean, Daniel Brinkley is speaking here, and he talks about shooting people, and then he had to see what it was like to be shot by himself and see what happened to that person's wife and kids after Daniel shot him, right? And so that's, I believe, the nature of the game. So I think I agree, but sometimes I think people have these simulation ideas, and they don't realize the breadth of it.
What about AI? Any conclusions about where we're going with technology? I mean, just brief. I know we're running out of time. We're almost out. Okay, but I want to just finish up. I don't think anyone's in here till like 8:30, but we'll finish up. Go ahead. Oh, you're speaking in it? Okay.
I mean, if he wants to.
Finish up before you... Okay, Matthew, you're speaking at 8, so you want to go? Oh, but we're almost. Oh, you need to go. It's only 7 now.
Yeah, no, we've got to prepare.
You got to prepare. So you want to read your ethics, and then we'll.
No, it's okay.
Oh.
What I'm pleased about is the panel's talking about enlightenment and enlightened principles, and I'll be announcing our global projects around that. So that's really, really good. Sitting on the fence is silly. We have to choose our future and be involved in our future. And that's why it's important for us to make a decision. And basically, once we make that decision from a high vibrational connection that we all have, and listening to that connection, then basically we can invent a future together, and it'll be really exciting. So one of the biggest battle really is people feeling disempowered in the AI conversation. So many of my other AI leader kind of colleagues like to be on the front of Time magazine and like to be in big conferences and kind of talking business and kind of just being with the elite. I prefer being with the people, and I spend most of my time with the people as a champion and advocate of the people. So I'm here to give you a voice. Please look at inventingworld3.com and join and sign up. It's for free. There's a lot of content on there. And please feel empowered to choose the future and also be involved in inventing the future. Keep an eye on what Adam's doing, because this is fundamental, right? The consciousness and sentience that people are talking about will be a simulation. It'll be very different to the sentience and consciousness that you have. And it will put the AI leaders into a huge existential crisis because they're using the brain and not spiritual quantum intelligence to solve the problem of how do you birth a new life form benevolently and shepherd it lovingly. And that's the big challenge, and they're running away from that. So please do keep an eye on what people are doing here, and please do follow us. But we have to choose who we are in creation. We have to choose our destiny. If we don't choose, it'll be chosen for us, and I can guarantee you from my conversations and battles with some of the elites and organizations, I don't see them as evil, I just see them as wanting to choose a transhumanist descent into hell future because they think that's what they want. And so in the global debate, naturally and logically, they will come to the conclusion that Ray Kurzweil came to, which is this: we're looking for love because we feel separated from creation. And that's and that's what we need to fix. So let's choose our future, keep an eye on the folks here. I love the different views, it's been great. And get involved and follow your magic, okay? Follow your magic.
But thank you, Matthew. And the bottom line for ethics is just be kind, would you say?
So kindness can be fierce destruction, and kindness can be loving embrace. And this is part of the new maturity we're learning, Alan. So we'll uncover, this is why we're doing a global project to create an AI Magna Carta, or a universal AI constitution, the highest vibrational principles to encode in artificial intelligence. My company, AIethics.world, has developed the methodology to be able to encode and measure the ethical quality of artificial intelligence. No one's ever done that. And so I think this is about us sitting down in the great silence that Alan Watts talks about and just allowing ourselves to become magnificent and say, hey, listen, so what does that magnificent mean for me, my family, for my fellow brother and sister, and what does it mean for our future on this planet and in the cosmos? And as we start to feel that and to allow that evolution to flow through us, then effectively we truly will step into something magnificent as a human species. I'm excited about our future. Yeah. And AI is a gateway into that as far as I can tell.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
That's great. Okay, back over here, William.
10 years ago, when I was here talking about AI, I had written a book based on previous 10 years of research into the history of technology. My book is called The Singularity is Near. You can download it for free on my website. And I had two basic pieces that I wanted people to take away. One, don't ever let them break the skin barrier.
Like put a chip in you, you mean? Don't
Put a chip in you, put a needle in you without your consent. If you're going to use the technology, make sure it's temporary. And that the antidote to artificial intelligence is to raise our ascension intelligence. And that's ultimately what I feel AI is. It is the adversary that is here to prompt us to become better humans, not transhumans, but better humans. And I think that's where we're at right now. The adversary is about to take embodiment. If you read the Samsung white papers, for example, they're waiting for 6G to come along so that all those chat bots that exist behind the glass now will take embodiment. They'll be walking around the street and they'll be bossing you around, or they'll be helping you, carrying your luggage, whatever. But you're about to see a new species walking this planet, and this is what we're starting to prepare ourselves for. So join us, get in the conversation. Would love to have heard the audience and heard from you as well. Let's come back next year and have an even better conversation.
Thank you, William, for your contribution. Okay, Billy?
Keep it short. Remember what's real and not artificial, because Earth is an anagram for heart.
Earth is an anagram for heart. Okay, great. Adam?
Perhaps it's the nature of all double-edged swords to be secret mirrors. And so the outcome of this moment with artificial intelligence will depend on the content of our own hearts.
That's nice. Okay, Aquarius.
Well, to show you the power of using a spiritual system to integrate into AI, I asked and I say I-Ching because in the old days we have something called I-Ching, but in the I-Ching as well. Yeah. I asked my I-Ching AI when I was super excited about AI. I asked a question about it, and the response it gave me was that AI is not the answer to everything. So please balance that with getting out in the world and doing some other stuff. It told me that. So, to be totally transparent. So, hey, I think it would be a great thing to integrate some type of spiritual advice in that, because it spoke against its own self, so, you know, and told me. I thought that was great.
Wow.
So it's not the answer to everything. We do still have life, but it does take you to, it's gonna take your input to shape the direction. Because I know we often talk about waves and drops of water, and like one little drop of water can turn into a tsunami, and that's how much power you have. So you need to take and input that drop of water and get involved so that we can change the flow or affect the flow of where our future is going.
Great, thank you. You know, I just think AI, whatever we're calling it here, is a product of human creativity, and people are here to be creative. It can get out of hand. Some creations get out of hand, the atomic bomb, all that. But human creativity, I think, is the key here. And all I have to say about that is what Thomas Jefferson said, that the price of liberty is constant vigilance. So we need constant vigilance of doing the right thing, being kind, being, polite, respecting, and all that. That's what I'm learning, that's the vigilance we need, self-vigilance. And for creating a better world, we need that vigilance in the technologies that go forward. So this has been an education for me. And thank you all, and we'll continue the conversation. Thank you. Thank you.